I'm never going to concede that a robot has consciousness, and if it does have consciousness, I'm going to do everything in my power to make it suffer.
You're sounding a lot like a human supremacist
I am
now.
Absolutely a human supremacist. I love human beings, and I love our flaws, and we have this desire to get rid of all of our flaws and just close that gap between action and thought, or the things that make us feel pain. And that is what you are. You are those contradictions, and you are what feels pain. You should suffer, and I'm going to kill the robots, basically.
Welcome to Doomscroll. I'm your host, Joshua Citarella. My guest is JReg, a popular YouTuber who explores online radical politics. What's the new meta for this year?
Yeah, new meta.
There's a new patch update for politics. Yeah.
Okay, well, on the center, we have reactionary centrism. That's J.J. McCullough. He is reacting to the excesses of the far left and the far right by planting his flag in the middle and being a Biden extremist or whatever. Now he's a Kamala extremist.
Sure.
And he'll just, he's like, things are getting too crazy. We need to just get back in the middle. And this is one of the only groups that actually likes America. Everybody else hates America. If we move to the left, we get the balkanized left. That's what I call it. It's like a bunch of separate infighting leftist factions that can't agree with each other on anything, call each other fascists.
Sounds like the left.
Or revisionists or whatever. Then we move to the right. We have the effective accelerationist group, the movement out of the effective altruist group, efficient accelerationists, EAC, and they're just like tech bros, Elon Musk kind of vibe,
very heavily into AI.
AI will fix all of our problems. We'll develop carbon capture, which is in the 2050 projection of how much carbon we need to produce. They just assume we're going to invent carbon capture. I hope so. But yeah, we'll see if that happens. And worst case scenario, network states. I'll live on Mars and as the world burns. And then we move further right. We have post-racial fascism. This is a new meta update. Kanye West, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, all these people who are not white, advocating for fascism. Sneeko, that's a good example. Non-white people advocating for fascism, closing the borders. And because America, you can't really do white supremacy in America. Well, maybe you can, but it's you need to get through post-racial fascism before you get to a white ethno state. So it's we're black support for Trump in 2024 versus 2016. Quadruples.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, partially because Andrew Tate's a good example of post-racial fascism.
Sure.
These people who are not white, it's the meme, who wants to be a white supremacist? Everyone's raising their hand. Who here is actually white? Everyone's like, oh. Mixed race people are the most racist. I know this firsthand. So that's on the right. And then I'd say there's an anti-centrist coalition as well. The MAGA communists, perhaps. These are people who are trying to make a dialectical argument between the far left and the far right. JJ will just say they're far right, fair enough. And there's also these, maybe the guy that shot Trump is one of these guys. Just nihilist accelerationism, just everything sucks. I'm literally just going to look up who's closest to me and shoot him. Bad. Sorry, I meant to say bad. Bad. No, don't do that. As soon as Trump got shot, I tweeted, "Now do the other guy," and it's still on there because I could be referring to anything. That could mean anything, but in the context of what was going on. There's the Horseshoe Coalition there for sure. And you talk about a Horseshoe Coalition in terms of people who are trying to ban TikTok. The far left and the far right both don't want to ban TikTok because it spreads good ideas for both of them.
It's complicated. So as we saw with the TikTok ban, this is, we're rolling back a few months here, but there was, let's say the squad adjacent left, really did not want to ban TikTok.
Yeah.
And I would attribute that primarily to the overwhelming abundance of pro-Palestinian content on TikTok.
Guys, I just read Osama bin Laden and turns out he's based.
Oh, God. In some cases, there was 70-to-1 ratio between pro-Palestinian content versus pro-Israel content on TikTok.
Zog seething right now.
So that's a big reason why they want to keep it around. And then there were other people like Rand Paul, for example, who's very much like a right-wing libertarian, but he doesn't believe that the government should ban a private company and definitely doesn't believe that they should ban certain types of political speech.
Yeah.
And so you start to see these factions that oppose the center consensus for different reasons, but they still oppose the same piece of legislation.
Yeah.
So I think we may see things like that emerge more and more in the future.
And if I do have
have a political project,
it is encouraging stuff like that to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
And encouraging people to look across the aisle, specifically past the people in the middle of the aisle, and view the people who are opposing them most as possible allies. Yeah.
On the most recent meta, Zionism seems to be getting nerfed.
Yeah, the Powers of Zion meta update.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
that's the expansion pack. Yeah, Zionism's out. I don't like, this is really a Zoomer Boomer divide. The youths.
Is it more of a generational divide or like a left-right divide?
It's definitely generational, because the young right-wing, the young right-wing people, like the far right-wing people, do not like Israel for some reason.
This is going to be a rough transition. You recently canvassed for Representative Jamal Bowman.
I did.
What was that experience like?
I enjoyed it a lot. I thought that the people I canvassed with were cool. I actually liked a lot of the progressive people that I met. And a lot of people were surprised that I was there. Like, oh, Drake's canvassing for a political candidate. And it's like, it's actually not that confusing based off how I see the world. Like, he was canvassing against a centrist who was like within the Democratic Party. What I'm advocating for is you move to the extremes and give power to the people who are like holding you hostage right now, like quote unquote. Like people like the far left's like, we're going to riot if Kamala doesn't pick a centrist vice president or whatever.
Sure.
And so I think you should go, and I think I'd like to see, like, for example, like the more center candidate lose so that they can elect a further left candidate, so that things actually happen, things change more. I'd love to see a left-wing Project 2025. That'd be hilarious. That should be hilarious. I'd love to see Bernie Sanders, SEAL Team 6, Donald Trump. That'd be awesome. So I don't know. That was an obvious one for me. You know, Jamal Bowman wrote poems about 9/11. Jacked. Anti-white.
I've seen him bench 3 plates.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a pretty big guy.
Anti-Zog. My guy. So I went there. I said a lot of, there were there was maybe some friction between me and the progressives. They would be like, AIPAC is an organization that needs to get out of our elections. And I was like, yes, Israel does need to get out of our election. And everyone's like uncomfortable. I'm like, no, we all know what we're talking about here.
When we first met,
Jews.
God. This was, God damn it.
It's okay, I'm Jewish, I can say it.
When we first met, you had been visiting all sorts of political radicals in the U.S. Yeah. You'd been traveling for a little while. We met, we did an exhibition together.
Yeah, it was very
fun. And you'd been meeting a whole bunch of interesting people, including some anarcho-capitalists.
Yeah, a anarcho-capitalist is a member of my studio in Toronto.
What kind of people did you meet during that trip?
I hung out with people in Austin who were effective altruists.
A lot of startup culture in Austin.
Startup culture, yeah. Post-rationalists, rationalists.
Crypto people?
A lot of crypto people involved with that scene. I liked them. ALO was one of them. And the Less Wrong guy was part of that scene. What else? I hung out with you guys. You guys were very cool. I called you guys the left accelerationists in my head. I like that term. I don't know if you agree with it, but Do Not Research was cool. On that trip specifically, I think that those were the two main people I hung out with, the two main scenes. I'm fascinated by internet scenes and political scenes. Did I hang out with any fascists? No, I didn't hang out with any fascists. What's wrong with me? Next time I'll try harder.
Probably for the best there, yeah. You mentioned post-irony before.
Yeah.
Where did you come across that term?
Well, I didn't invent this term. Post-irony has been around for a long time. It meant the return to sincerity from an ironic position. It's often confused with metamodernism or postmodernism. I just kind of like picked terms for them. So I describe post-irony as something feels ironic, but it's actually sincere, versus meta-irony, which is just garbled, often speech from like a young person that doesn't know what they believe. That's signaling in all directions simultaneously and has no inherent truth value to it. And I kind of do a bit of both sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. My sense is that people will post something to gauge the reaction of their community, or maybe they want to piss somebody off.
Yeah.
And they say something that they may or may not mean, but in the process of saying that publicly, they're also determining their own belief systems in many cases.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to decide what I think about this after I gauge the reaction of my audience.
Right. For example, for me, I don't believe in anything. Is that okay? Is that cool? Do you think that's cool? Oh, it's not cool. I mean, I actually have a lot of beliefs.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You wouldn't know them, but I definitely have a lot of values. Because having values is cool, unless it's not, in which case I don't. I think it comes from a desperation to be involved with a community. Desperation from not having any friends.
Is there some kind of overlap between post-irony and irony poisoning?
Yeah. I'm an irony poison zoomer. I'm the irony is so deeply embedded into my soul that it is my soul. And I do that sort of intentionally as a performance art piece, but it's real, it's true. It describes a lot of people, and maybe you can move through the irony poisoning and come out the other side with a real political perspective that helps destroy the U.S. government. So I'm all for it.
I think of a lot of these post-ironic belief systems, this like irony poisoning process, as being symptomatic of not having like large, grand narratives, meta-narratives that explain the world to you in this day and age, right?
Yeah.
Like we're living after the end of history. There's not like a real competing system to global capitalism. Socialism didn't work. Fascism didn't work. And so it's like, well, what can you really believe in? There's no alternative, right? And so people tend to use this process of kind of like dipping their toe into the pool and then trying to test out different belief systems.
Yeah.
Like they're playing characters in an MMO RPG. It's like,
I mean,
do I feel like the wizard or do I feel like the warrior?
It's useful for young people. You talked about this identity play. But maybe it's not that crazy what the kids are doing. They're just trying on a bunch of different perspectives, seeing which one works. It used to be you wouldn't have that many options to choose from. Now you go on Polk Ball Wiki and you sort through all of the different ideology balls, and you find whichever ideology ball resonates with you the most, and then you live that out for a bit. Maybe you run into some complications or contradictions with it, and then you pick another ideology ball. And eventually you pick one, and then you get My Political Journey. And you get, the political compass, like, you're all over the political compass. How old are you? 16? 16-year-olds have lived so many lives. It's kind of crazy.
There was one, a famous one that was going viral on Twitter last week that was like, yeah, I think of myself back in 2018 when I was like a libertarian, monarchist, whatever bullshit. And like the next comment is like, you were 10 years old in 2018.
You were 10 years old in 2018.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, now you're 15.
Who do you think is winning?
Who's winning?
Of all these different groups, yeah.
Well, I think the centrists are definitely losing. That's all I can say. I think, I don't know, I'm sympathetic towards that libertarian patchwork state idea because it allows for all these different ideologies to somewhat coexist. I don't know if that'll work, but I'm sympathetic to all these ideas simultaneously. I'm sympathetic to people who want to bring everyone together under a communist state. I'm sympathetic towards people who want to just bring power back to local communities.
What about in the world of memetics rather than like real world politics?
Who's like
policy?
memetically winning?
Yeah, because I would say 2016 to 18 was like, there was a huge movement from the online right, and they were winning. They were dominating the discourse. All of the think pieces, the narratives that were being written were in response to what they were doing. And then there was another period where, those people waned proportionally in their influence. And I would say that in the last few years, maybe, definitely this summer, there's a feeling of like, the tankies, the authoritarian left is very prominent.
Off left is on the rise now.
Yeah.
I think, we were just at this off left party.
Right.
A lot of tankies there.
Well, it was an off something party.
Off something, for sure. I don't know. Who's winning? The center's losing. I can say that with absolute confidence. The Overton window has shattered down the middle, and now the center is no longer in the Overton window. It's weird to be someone like J.J. McCullough, who thinks that you can be a centrist still. No one likes the centrists anymore. He's going like this. But the further left and the further right are both getting legitimized more and more. They will continue to get legitimized more and more as things get worse. This is all because of climate change, nothing else, and the internet. And wait, no, hold on. I have to get my theory of everything down. Okay, I'm zoning in on climate change, just climate change now. As that gets worse, you'll see things. It's hot today, huh?
Yeah.
Nothing else matters.
It is. I think it was the hottest day on record 2 days ago.
Nothing else matters besides that.
That's
everything's
basically every other
from
week is the hottest day on record.
Yes, exactly. And it's only going to get worse and worse.
Yeah.
And as things get worse, extremism, like people, as the failures of the status quo continue to gather up, there's always going to be these people searching for solutions.
Right.
And it's going to be harder and harder to justify the way things are as things get worse. You know,
Yeah, as things get worse, people, understandably seek out other solutions.
Yeah.
And so who's offering solutions on the internet? It's all of these political radicals from every corner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're hungry for big solutions. And, the West has fallen. I saw $8 grapes in New York. The West has fallen.
That's what did it?
It's over.
$8 grapes.
Pack it up. And it was a little thing of grapes. Just a little thing. So, pack it up, the West. It's over. Go back to your mother.
It's over. The West has a negative canthal tilt.
The negative canthal tilt of the West. I imagine all of America just packing it up, like folding in and then going home. Back to Europe.
Are things getting better or worse? For most people, are things getting better or worse?
Worse. Obviously, I'm going to say worse. There's very few situations where you can ask me, are things getting better or worse and then fill in the blanks. I'm always going to say worse. I'm pessimaxed. I'm a pessimaxed, neurotopilled, doom cell going despair core.
If one's goal was revolution and overthrow of the government, one might say that things are getting better because the conditions for that seem to be increasing in the last few years.
That's true, yes. But for things to get better, they have to first get worse. And by that I mean, once things get worse, they'll just continue to get worse. And I'm just kind of leading them down the worse direction for a little bit. And then they're like, things get better now, right? I'm like, no. No. Things will get worse and worse and worse. But there will be some fun to be had as things get worse, perhaps.
You have one of the most unusual audiences, maybe in the entire world. There are political radicals from all sides that are watching your content. A lot of people who disagree on basically everything under the sun are in the same comment thread, and they are avid consumers of your content. They're fans of what you do. Do you have an idea of who your average viewer is?
That's a good question. I've been through many eras on my channel. I've talked about politics, just only politics, and then I talked about like mental health, and then I've talked about all kinds of things, gender, and I've talked about fetishes. And if there is a link between any of the things I talk about, it's probably whatever the internet's done to people's brains, especially young people. And it doesn't matter if you're a communist or those other guys, right? You still probably got there from being on the internet a lot and not having a lot of real world connections and opportunities, most likely. So if I had to generalize my audience, I'd say probably autismophrenic, anti-centrist people, but there's also some centrists who think I'm joking, some normal people, and they're like, that's wacky, that's crazy, man. But those aren't my people. Those people get weeded out pretty quick.
One is tempted to say that the thing that they have most in common is this instinct to categorize. Infinitely granular. Is that what? Yeah.
Autism.
Internet brain, I was going to call it.
I'm going to call it autism.
Too many tabs open.
Yeah. The desire to I think there's a real desire to make sense of the world.
Yeah. We both also have this to a large degree, right? Like we're looking at people who do this to an absurd, like satirical, like unimaginable degree, but we're also both huge fans of this stuff.
Yes,
like I think to myself that I know every single type of libertarian that exists.
Yeah.
I catalog them like Pokemon.
Minarchist, Hoppian, anarcho-capitalist, libertarian monarchist. There's so many kinds, and they just keep going and going.
Georgism,
Hoppian,
Night Watchman State,
Agorist.
There's an infinite numbers of ice cream flavors for all of these.
Post-right.
Is there some kind of similarity that also emerges between these groups where they're cataloging different internet subcultures in a similar way? Like they're fans of music, and one person might be a fan of like Screamo and the other person is a fan of pop music or whatever, but they both have these enormous archives, right? They have everything indexed and keyworded and has all the like meta tags and everything. Is there a similar kind of impulse that has like a downstream political effect?
The music categorization people, they're working off of a similar sort of impulse to try to understand the field that they're in by categorizing everything. And I could see there being like music balls in the same way there's like ideology balls and country balls at some point.
Yeah.
Like the Screamo ball is like, rah! And then, the post-pop hard rock ball is saying some other shit. I don't know. I don't know much about music, but yeah, I would assume so.
We talked about the origins of the political compass and what is widely considered, a few years ago when it was first getting popular on mainstream social media for the first time, a lot of people said that it had a right libertarian bias.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the idea is, because it was made by libertarians.
Indeed,
it
was.
That bias.
Yeah.
Although I think generally it has a libertarian bias in general. Like there's a lot of people that come out as left libertarian. Very few people come out as authoritarian. And I think the political compass making left libertarian a thing legitimizes left libertarianism as an idea, which is, that's fine by me.
Not by me, but that's okay, to each their own. Do you think that there's a kind of metaframe around some of these things where taking these quizzes and finding these infinitely niche, granular political ideologies that one might infer that this is a project designed to inflame the narcissism of small differences, such that if someone is a few blocks away from you but in the same political quadrant, you can no longer have a coalition with them. You have to fight out all of your differences because they're 2 squares away from you.
Yeah, the question is, does this lead to more division or more opportunities for people to connect?
Right.
And I think it does a little bit of both. I think you can make both arguments. I'm not really sure which one happens more. For example, the authoritarians. This is a common thread that is on your podcast.
Right.
The Marxist-Leninists collaborating with the fascists because they're all on the authoritarian side of the political compass. Is that a kind of natural alliance that would have happened in the past? I mean, maybe red-brown alliance or something. But it, as well as creating the narcissism of small differences and being a tool for people to create these infinitely granular post-left Hoppian monarcho primitivist labels that make them so niche that they're unable to organize. I think it also creates an exciting opportunity to make connections between people. And I think that's kind of what my whole anti-centrism bit is all about, is looking for the connections between disparate groups to try to create some sort of actionable political strategy. And even if it's like a post-ironic or apparently satirical perspective, it's still like that's what it is, trying to find what the common ground between people is in a way that's not centrist. In a way that's not just affirming the status quo. I mean, you were telling me about this libertarian guy. You can cut this. But the libertarian guy who was running Sovereign House or something, like putting people against each other in order to like have debates. But the axiom of the debate was not so that you can find a centrist middle ground, but instead to inflame those tensions so everyone goes their own separate way for nefarious libertarian purposes. I find that very interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're generally taught to think of debate as like, okay, we're going to approach this issue from either side, and one person's going to be from the left, the other's from the right, and then we're going to whittle in towards the center, find the consensus points of agreement, and by doing this, we will reach the truth eventually, right? Through their disagreement, we will find the points on which they align, and thus we'll uncover the truth. There's another way of approaching debate where if one wanted to further libertarian exit politics in this case, you would platform everyone who has completely disagreeing, irreconcilable opinions to inflame those differences such that the groups feel like, well, we can't reach a consensus. There is no truth that is shared between the mass public. And we have to separate into either different competing countries or different competing parties or whatever. And so that kind of discursive component of debate, of like trying to reach the truth through deliberation, through supporting your arguments, all of that kind of goes out the window. And it seems to me that social media is very much designed to inflame those antagonisms. And it's not designed in such a way that we're going to platform everyone to get closer to the truth. We're going to platform everyone to inflame the differences and then break down any form of consensus reality.
And that's a good thing. And I think
that this also is like, this is the ideological design of the political compass, where is it David Nolan? What is the guy's name?
Nolan chart. David Nolan. I think.
The Nolan chart, the original like world's smallest political quiz, right? So this is 1967, where you take this quiz and then it spits you out in one of the 4 quadrants. And then in 1972, he's one of the co-founders of the Libertarian Party in the United States. And so I'm tempted to kind of like read this in reverse, that what he wants to do is to like isolate everyone as an individual who cannot be a member of a group or a political party or any coalition, because they all have to pursue their own individual interests, such that there are no... Well, I mean, very much like, I would say anti-coalition, anti-political party, such that all of society is composed of individuals. I'm recalling Margaret Thatcher in this case. So that would be, I would extrapolate that.
So the political compass is a neoliberal psyop meant to keep us atomized and individuated. What I'll say about the political compass in terms of whether it's divisionary, whether it makes more divisions or it like unites people, is there's a world where these increasingly fractionated political labels do divide people. There's also a world where people get together and they come to common consensus about how things need to change. Maybe it's just we need to something broad, like we need to get money out of politics. Or maybe it's like we need to do some assassinations or something. I don't know.
Okay.
And whatever people agree on, maybe they go for that. And maybe we don't fractionate into a bunch of microstates, but we all learn to live with each other's differences and get along as long as we kill J.J. McCullough.
So the end goal of politics is to have a dynamic and competitive marketplace for assassinations on the deep web.
Maybe. I don't know.
How did you find out about all this stuff? How did you ruin your life on the internet?
How did I ruin my life? Well, I was an up-and-coming YouTube guy trying to make it on the internet, and I'd been making spoken word poetry for a while, but I was trying a bunch of different formats. I tried video essays. At some point, I read I read a few things. I read Angela Nagel's Kill All Normies, and I read your Post-Left PDF, and the Post-Left PDF really captured my imagination. And so I was looking into these political compass memes and stuff, and in an attempt to learn about this, I made a rap where I was all the different political characters, and that was just spoken word with a really shitty beat, and that became a big video for me. And when you find something on the internet that works for you, you just keep doing it over and over again until you fall into the niche and rot away, and everyone forgets you. So that's what I was. That was my game plan there.
That's I think if you as you said, doing the TikTok video of the anarcho-capitalist reviewing the Ford F-150.
It's not capitalist enough.
Yeah, exactly.
What would the communists think of Kellogg's cereal? It's not communist enough.
What year was that
1 million
video?
views on TikTok if I did that shit.
Literally. Yeah. What year was that video? The
2019, 5 years ago now.
5 years, yeah.
I'm an old man on the internet.
And in that time of those 5 years, right? Because I remember seeing all of these flourishing internet subcultures, and it was, to be fair, it was hilarious. Like this stuff, these memes were so funny, these cultures were so captivating. And then within like the last few years, I mean, you see this mounting and it's like an increasing curve. It feels like a lot of these things went from being ironic jokes on the internet to being like somehow very real. And now there's like IRL groups, there's meetups, there's like new political parties being formed. Like, does that track with your understanding of these spaces that we've kind of moved into a new era here? Yeah,
when you interview JJ tomorrow, he'll tell you all this internet nonsense will not do anything and will never manifest in any kind of change whatsoever. But actually, they start off ironic and then they become what I call post-ironic, where they are manifesting as sincerity. They feel ironic because they're so outside the Overton window. And then they start gathering together, meeting up. These people want community. They want to actually do stuff. And almost in this nihilism of wanting to just feeling like you can't do anything about the current system, you accidentally end up doing stuff. And then these nihilists are like, no, I didn't mean to do anything. That was a mistake. Yeah, but I think you'll see more and more of the internet manifesting in reality, all this weird internet politics. And I'm going to be in the Jeff Bezos microstate, I think.
I gotta say that's a pretty good one. Yeah, you get the Whole Foods, you get Twitch, you get Amazon, and you get the Washington Post all in one subscription. They also have healthcare now. Have you seen this Amazon healthcare?
No.
I got to say, in the United States, it's pretty affordable.
Wow.
It's like telehealth, and it's like tens of dollars a month.
Wow.
Which is, below market rate for a lot of these things. I'm not sure if it's VC funded or why it's so affordable right now, but like that's a full like total stack. You've got your food, you've got your news, you got your media. Now you got your doctor. It's a pretty compelling package.
This is me reading the Washington Post in a world where Washington no longer exists because we're a bunch of competing feudal microstates. Wow. Yeah.
The internet is an incredibly noisy space, right? So imagine you're a young person, you're 15 years old, and you just transparently see, it can induce a lot of mental health problems for sure. You go out onto the internet, you notice that there's downward mobility, you don't have a lot of positive prospects. The background, as you mentioned, like the kind of rising action to all of this, especially generationally speaking, is the looming threat of climate change, which is like biblical catastrophes. It's literally the end of the world in some cases. And so you go out onto the internet seeking out solutions or answers to this, and you encounter a lot of different views and a lot of those people who are maybe have unconventional belief systems. Some of them are crazy. Some of them are really sane. How do you tell these people apart? How do you tell the lunatics on the internet from the normal people?
I have a pretty good system for. So if someone's saying like, reasonable, well-measured things, that means they're a normal person, not a lunatic. I write them off. And then I go and I gravitate towards the lunatics. I'm a lunatic.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm insane.
Okay.
I'm not going to pretend to be a sane person, and I like insane people. So I gravitate towards them, and you can just tell. You can tell, like, people with like really esoteric views. Have you heard of Yakub? I'm Yakub pilled now. He created
sure.
white people.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's what I'm into right now. I'm Yakub pilled. That's my thing. But I'm also thinking.
Journey, yeah.
I'm also thinking of getting into that Jewish cult where they think that the rabbi is still alive. That rabbi guy. That might be my next thing.
When you encounter these radical ideas online, right? We've both spent many years looking over all sorts of different communities. Do you hold those things with you forever?
Some things break my brain.
Yeah.
I feel like when you're categorizing, it's like putting a book on the library bookshelf. And most of the time, it's just like, okay, I'm just enhancing my knowledge and nothing really changes. But then you learn about accelerationism, and then I cannot stop using the word techno-capital.
You do, yeah. You are accelerating towards a techno-capital singularity
I can't
or something,
help
using it so frequently.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So that's one of those things when I learned about accelerationism, viewing human beings as like a process that's just bringing about something bigger than itself. That's one of those things that really like stuck in my head as a frame.
Yeah.
As I was searching for things, but mostly it's just putting a book on a bookshelf and that's it.
Yeah. Did you ever regret learning something online, coming in contact with a belief system that you wish you didn't know about?
I wish I had a time machine and I went back and I was like, don't look at the political compass memes. Don't do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, but what about Post Left by Joshua Citarella and Instagram and Politigram? They're like, no, especially not that. No, I don't know if I have any huge regrets. I mean, obviously, you learn some things, you learn some perspectives that make you feel weird or sad. And then, it really just none of it matters. What about love?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, I really think of this a lot, right? It's like there's definitely an aspect for everyone who gets really deep into these communities where they're exploring like the world outside themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of those things come from like internal crises that are very difficult to resolve. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of easier to just consume all of the knowledge in the world and become an expert on the most esoteric topics that have no fucking applicability to the world whatsoever.
Yes.
Right? Like the amount of like insane neo-caste system ideology, like weird ritual bullshit that I don't even want to say on the podcast. Like I've cataloged all of this in my brain. Mm-hmm. Like I just read all of the internet books that I saw in memes. And I was like, I'm going to learn something really important here.
Yeah.
And
the importance of...
How would my life have been if I didn't do that? Maybe it would have been fine.
The importance of all these things is that it lets you get into communities.
We're both on the same page that like these silly internet things are going to amount to something.
Yeah.
And in rare instances, people who like, I mean, just in the last few weeks, there are people who are like extremely marginal figures on the internet, then blew up to be Twitter celebrities and are now speaking at the UN.
Yeah.
Like we're watching a process that may take a decade for all these things to play out, but we're watching the formation of new political parties.
Yeah.
We're watching people who are, have internet audiences find their way into mainstream politics. Mm-hmm. And those things are going to have a kind of slow process of building new political factions, I would say.
Yeah.
That's my opinion on it. JJ might disagree.
Yeah.
But I look at this as being a 21st century media experiment, essentially, where if we roll back to like the 20th century and we saw the foundation of like radical magazines from the left, right, or wherever, those things do have intellectuals. They have people who are involved in think tanks and downstream policy implications. And we're kind of watching the internet version of that. So I want to look at all of these places and kind of track the trend lines of what's emerging and what is going to be influential soon. Because I really do think we're in a period of a necessary expansion of the Overton window.
Yeah.
I would say that, as you mentioned before, there's climate change, there's the internet, there's just a lot of pressures that are pushing this generation of people to need to seek out other political solutions because the kind of center consensus seems to be breaking down in the last few years.
Yes. The Overton window is made of glass. We all know it. Then things get hotter. What happens to glass when things get hotter? It stretches. That's right. That's why it's stretching to the left and the right at the same time. We're pulling it. We're pulling it. It's hot. I think what you said is pretty true. Yeah.
At the same time, we don't live under the threat of nuclear war.
No,
right?
We don't?
Well, actually, I say that, but we kind of fucking do, actually. Yeah, we're about as close as we've been able to get in our lifetimes.
Nukes also melt the glass.
Yeah. My parents, when they went to school, they would run these drills where they would hide under their desk in case, the Russians decided to nuke the United States.
Cope.
Wages are worse, though.
Yeah, wages are worse.
It's much more hard to afford a home, right? Boomers would pay like a year's salary for a middle-class home.
That's whack.
That doesn't exist anymore. Now it's an unrepayable lifetime worth of debt.
Yeah.
That definitely seems to be getting worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone lives.
Why do you think that trust in the mainstream media is decreasing?
Is trust in the mainstream media decreasing, or does just no one watch it because it's boring? Because like the average CNN viewer is 67, and that was like the youngest. Like Fox News viewer is like average 70. So it's probably just that no one watches it. It's boring. Like when you watch a YouTuber for a while and you really like them, and then you just get bored of their content, you have to like justify it morally by saying like the YouTuber's bad or something, and they get canceled 5 years later after you stop watching them, and you're like, I always knew that person was bad. I think a lot of things are getting canceled right now. Mainstream media, canceled. United States, canceled. But you never get canceled when you're at the top. You always get canceled when you're already on the decline. So that's why we're canceling the United States.
Because it's in decline.
Yeah. It's like we're bored of the United States. You've been around too much. Let's try this new guy instead.
They're an easy target.
This is also how Canadians do politics.
Sure.
We're just like, we get bored of Trudeau and we're like, all right, let's get this other guy in.
Is it good for society to have trust in their media?
It's good if you think that like homogeneity of belief is good, and you think like having like a shared meta narrative is good, and like having people like mostly agree with each other on things, that when that leads to a sort of internal rot like we're seeing right now, then it's probably bad, because you want people to start being critical of some of the systems that we have in place.
Right. So a lot of people will say that mainstream media is not reformable, right? It's completely captured by certain interests that are at the political center that are trying to preserve the status quo.
Right.
And so what necessarily needs to happen is a competing structure of alternative media. This means independent channels, this means Substack, it means YouTube and all these different things. And because those channels are not subject to the political interests of the people who fund these organizations, advertisers, pharmaceutical industry, and so on, that they are more able to pursue the truth. They're able to be honest narrators.
Yes.
And so to reach that truth, to like earn the trust of the public, you necessarily have to go outside those mainstream channels.
Yeah, dude. Russell Brand is the most honest narrator I know.
God, yeah. I'll never get over that he is the fucking voice for the capitalist realism audiobook.
Damn.
It's just like, God, yeah, what a waste. What a waste.
I don't know. I think that there's probably some Hegelian dialectics at play there. You see, based off
Hegelian dialectics?
Based off my understanding of Hegelian dialectics, all right, you've got the mainstream media that represents the thesis, and then there's this antithesis, which is independent media, and then they cancel each other out like protons, like and antiprotons, and they explode, and then they make some sort of synthesis between the two of them. So maybe we'll see Russell Brand as the CNN anchor. Ever think about that?
There you go. Okay.
I don't know what's going to happen. But do I buy that? I don't know. I think people just don't like mainstream media because it's old and cringe, and we're having some problems with new media. But as long as it all concentrates in some techno-feudalists' hands, I'm okay with that. All the power.
Many of the people who post this radical stuff online, they may or may not get involved in real-world politics a few years later. Have you seen people move between from posting to political action? Have you seen anyone get radicalized online and then become like really active?
I mean, I feel like it happened with me to an extent.
Actually, it literally did, yeah, because you did a bunch of posts and then you canvassed for an actual political candidate. So
yeah,
should remember who I'm talking to here.
Yeah. I also ran for mayor.
You did.
So like, I've done political stuff. But yeah, and it's not a pure LARP either, because I'm doing it with intention. I don't know. I mean, you see it, right? You see people actually do stuff. What do you think?
I've seen a lot of it, you know. I mean, over the past few years I've interviewed, I don't know, I can't even count how many people, and some of them have gotten involved in real-world politics. In some cases, they're like practically involved in electoral politics. In other cases, they're in like a totally insignificant, basically doesn't exist communist organization or something like that. Yeah. It's basically a reading group, and they don't really do much. Other people, they make big decisions, like they join the National Guard.
Yeah.
for example.
Or get involved with their union.
Yeah, they organize in their workplace. That's a real example. There's people who they might choose to have children. They might choose to take certain types of jobs, study certain things as opposed to others. So
I think the people UK rioting right now have probably got together on the internet.
what are the lines on which we draw political divisions now? Is it culture? Is it class? Is it our media diets?
Yeah, I think we're going through some politics vibe shifts. Political realignment. Have we gone from like...
What's realigning?
Well, you know, you could make the argument that like things were mostly like kind of center left versus center right for a while, and now it's like more like. You could make the argument that things have moved from culture more to class. You could also make the argument that things have moved from class more to like technology. Maybe technology, or you can make the argument. This is the argument I make. Things have moved away from establishment to anti-establishment.
Yeah,
and that might be the actual political realignment. And I'm on the side of anti-establishment because that's what gives me the most swag.
I mean, that sounds right to me. I think a lot of people, especially with the like emergence of right-wing populism across like basically everywhere in the advanced world, that a lot of these people basically promise to blow up the existing institutions that people feel are dysfunctional, that no longer serve their interests. They don't necessarily propose what to do after that, but they promise to like take out corruption and things like that.
Yeah.
That's very much happening.
Yeah. The populist gets elected and they're like, I'm going to change everything. And then they get in power. And then they're like, it's hard. I have to live in the world now.
In the new meta here, what's the counter for right-wing populism?
Right-wing populism can only be defeated by left-wing populism. And left-wing populism can only be defeated by right-wing populism.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, actually, no, hold on. I changed my mind. It's rock, paper, scissors. So the far right beats the center, but then the far left beats the far right. And then the center beats the far left.
Fuck, actually, that's really good. That's what it is. A lot of your characters on your channel are outrageous. They're politically extreme. Have you ever encountered censorship? Have you had posts taken down?
I used to get demonetized a lot when I first started. But then I think someone gave me the green flag and all my stuff's monetized now. Have I really run into much censorship? Not really. Sometimes like, I feel like I'm not big enough to really run into any huge problems. I'm like a medium-sized channel. There some weird things happen. Like I got one of my videos taken down because I put like there's a screenshot of one of my videos. I got one of my videos taken down, which I'm doing a comparative analysis between gender and politics, and I say like basically gender is a mental illness, but so is political belief, and so is everything else. And like gender as a mental illness. I'm saying like being a man is a mental illness, as is being a woman. Like it's all just like a brain worm. And that's actually like a left-wing case for gender.
Sure.
But it got taken down because I have on my screen like gender equal mental illness. But then I appealed it and they put it back up. So
do you feel like there's someone at YouTube that has looked at your stuff and thought that, oh, this he's doing satire, he's doing parody? Like in the internet of the last few years, a lot of those things have kind of dried up.
Dude,
like there's not a lot of space for...
I released a video saying we should kill both presidential candidates openly. It's monetized and has 400,000 views. I have multiple videos where I'm dressed up as a neo-Nazi, and it's all been fine. I feel like something's gonna. I can't keep getting away with it. I don't know how I keep getting away with it. So I don't know. I don't know if I have a guardian angel at YouTube. I don't expect it to last forever.
How do you explain what you do to like a normal person?
I say I make videos on YouTube, and they say
about
what about? Actually, no, they don't say that. They say, how much money do you make? And I say, I do well for myself. And they say, oh, good. And then that's it. They don't care anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, most people don't care.
Yeah.
But if I'm talking to someone who's like, I don't know, interested, I don't know. I say all kinds of things because I also say I mostly don't even just talk about politics anymore. I say I make like avant-garde art about the internet.
Yeah.
Something like that. People don't ask too many questions. And they say, oh, I'm going to subscribe. I'm like, I don't need this.
I do a similar thing when I meet someone who's just like a normal person, like let's say like a friend of your family or something. They're like, well, what do you do? It's like, I write about internet culture and I have a newsletter. I say something like that. Like, oh, what is it? It's like, it's really niche. You probably wouldn't be interested in it. And a few years ago, I would say like, well, I've been studying people who got radicalized on the internet and then they found their way into like, distributing the manifestos of active eco-terrorist groups alongside improvised explosive devices and shit like this. And it was like, actually, no one wants to hear about that. This is a very weird, unusual thing to be into. And just say you write about internet culture and try to like avoid the entire conversation.
It's true, but I think I've seen more and more people get interested in as time goes on. Like me, even members of my family getting interested in like esoteric stuff, and now I can like talk to them about it. It's a spreading mind virus, and unlike some mind viruses, I'm pro this mind virus of people getting like politics as a brainworm. Hyperpolitics, it's in everyone's head now. Yeah, everyone thinks about it all the time. It's just this like way of connecting with people.
Well, that's my way of, and I don't know in fairness if this is just me rationalizing a very terrible habit of looking into this stuff way too in depth. But I really do feel like the Overton window is expanding. These things are going to be influential. I've tracked them now for like, I don't know, at the very beginning of this, something like 10 years, watching people move from being techno-libertarians to national conservatives. These things are now shaping political realities. And so, my hope at the end of all of this is that you can have some type of analysis that actually meaningfully bears fruit, has influence on mainstream politics, that there's like a predictive capacity to doing this research. And that ideally, hopefully, we have good instincts and we are ahead of the curve, that we're able to see these emerging factions before they're like really, really influential. I would say some of that stuff is happening this year, right? Especially with the vice presidential pick, direct inroads to people who are doing radical ideology on the internet a few years ago.
Yes.
Those things are starting to feel really real.
Yeah. That's an important point. The VP pick, J.D. Vance, is directly Peter Thiel's mentee. So that's an example of online politics shit becoming real.
And he's texting with Curtis Yarvin.
Yeah, he's texting with Curtis Yarvin. So, yeah. Only going to happen more and more. You will see Fuentes versus AOC in 2036, mark my words.
What do you say to people that come into your comment threads and they think that every character you bring on, every statement you make, every perspective that you portray is your personal political beliefs? Yeah.
They're right. I mean everything I say. I've never told a joke in my life. When I say it, I mean it. That's the only way to really embody it, is to mean it as much as you possibly can. I mean it when I say it. And do I contradict myself? Very well.
Has anyone come for you with a cancellation campaign?
I try to mini cancel myself every 5 months or so.
Has it worked?
Burn away the audience. Yeah, because otherwise, this is a benefit of growing slow, is if you blow up really quickly, you get a bunch of people who are following you for the wrong reasons, and then you're caught with a Starbucks mug, and you got to apologize for being, supporting Zionists or something. Danny Gonzalez, he was like a big YouTuber guy, and it's like if you never make a stance on anything, then yeah, like eventually you'll be caught implicitly making a stance on something, and you get canceled because you've been inauthentic in some way. For me, if I grow really quickly and I get a certain group of people follow me for a specific reason, I try to burn off some of them because it's like they're gonna leave eventually when they find out, that I'm gonna like do something that offends them or something. So I may as well just burn them off sooner rather than later. Have I ever been really seriously canceled? I don't think you can get canceled. I mean, you cancel yourself. You let yourself get canceled. You can just keep, unless you get actually deplatformed.
Right.
You can just keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you entered, you were doing very radical, outrageous stuff, which was, hilarious, satire, parody, and so on, but you kind of started at the most extreme that you could. So It's not like there's been an escalation in the content or anything. You've kind of been doing, similar types of work, and you started doing that. It was permissible, and you've continued doing that. So you may just be safe in some of these cases.
We'll see.
Yeah. I think of my parents' generation. One of my parents was a Democrat, the other was a Republican, and they agreed on enough that they were able to stay together. There was a shared consensus reality between those people, but friend groups now, even families, for example, people get kicked out of Thanksgiving dinner because they vote the wrong way, right? Oh, I couldn't possibly share a space with my uncle or aunt who voted for the other candidate. And there's something that's, I think, very socially unhealthy about not being able to set aside those differences. And they feel like worlds of difference right now, especially in the domain of the culture wars. But in terms of the like actual policies that's on the table, like we have a very narrow Overton window within our electoral politics. All of these people agree on kind of the primary foundations of how politics is supposed to operate.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wonder if there's actually like a useful process here of making friends with people who have different ideas than you, not agreeing with their beliefs, disagreeing with their beliefs, standing up for what you believe in, but also like being able to share a meal and have a conversation, or to relate about something that is not part of your political identity.
Yeah.
Just to talk about sports.
Yeah.
To talk about like a comedy that you watched or something like that. That not every aspect of all of your social interactions is a political debate.
Yeah. I'm sympathetic to the idea that we can only say that because we're in a position where we can say that. But I also am sympathetic to the idea that we should just kill each other.
I am not sympathetic to that idea. I think it's good to have friends. And I think it's good to have disagreements between friends and to still be able to hang out and share a space. But to stand by what you believe.
Yeah.
I think there's a particular type of mental illness that's induced by social media where we start to do purity tests on our friends, right? And so you can slowly whittle down like, okay, in our group of 10 people, there's
so
only
sad.
8 that agree on these principles. Of that 8, there's only 6 that think X, Y, and Z.
Well, I think that's sad because of the tangible effect on your life.
Yeah.
That leads you to be atomized. Like this,
Right.
I am genuinely against atomization and the forces that lead to atomization. And what you're describing is one of those forces,
Yes.
which leads you to become more and more granular to the point where you have to purity test your friends out of your friend group. And then you're left with nobody. And that's one of those little tricks. It's like you think you're purity testing so that you can be more involved with some actual community, but your actual community exists on Twitter or Instagram.
Right.
And that's not a real community. And so you're like getting Pied Pipered into being completely alone in your room on these social media platforms the rest of your life instead of having actual friends.
Yeah.
And when you have actual friends and you exist in a community, you have to learn how to have disagreements with people, white people specifically. Hey.
What would someone have to believe that you would not want to hang out with them?
That's a good question. I think my enemy list is as follows. Myself, introverts and antisocial people, climate change, the streamer Vosh. No, I'm just kidding. He's fine. Sisyphus55, he's a philosophy YouTuber who isn't responding to my texts. The guy in high school that stole my leading role from the Three Musketeers play and was really rude to me afterwards. Those guys got to go. But if you're not those, I'm pretty agreeable. I like most people, and I like people who are interested in things. I find people who are interested in things very interesting. Those are the people I hang around. I don't like sociopath scheming type people who always have gears in the works. Maybe that's just because I don't have the dopamine to scheme. I like goodness as a virtue, as and a desire to do good for others in the world around you instead of just being an individualist. I think that's very nice when I sense that in others, and those are the people I want to hang around. Those are the people that I like being around. So what would someone have to believe for me to not hang out with them? I can't even say centrism because I hang out with JJ all the time. So I don't know. Probably like antisocial perspectives that leave you alone. I think that is my political enemy in a way. My political and philosophical enemy is that those forces for atomization and cope, like Sigma males, like this idea that you need to lock yourself away in your room and grind. I think that's such a harmful attitude. But also on the other side of it, the more feminine side is like the self-care people who are like, I just need to be alone, and there's a lot of mental health frameworks that also leave you atomized and yada yada. Like you need to the BPD. You can't be around anyone that makes you feel bad about your mental illness because, and then that's another purity test. And the mental illness community is so toxic. Like, I don't know what's wrong with them.
Mental illness community.
Something's
is
definitely wrong with those guys.
Yeah.
So on the more masculine end of lock yourself away in your room, and the more feminine end of lock yourself away in your room, I think that's both bad. I think there's problems on both sides that need to be addressed with centrism.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give an example that, I have a group chat with a few friends who are all kind of like artists, political commentators, and we say outrageous, silly things in the group chat all the time and make jokes that you wouldn't put on the public timeline and stuff like that. And it's like everyone, I know their politics, like I know how the joke will go over, and it's fine. It's fine. Everyone knows like what is ironic and what is really intended because we've known each other for years and years.
The slurs.
We had someone, no, not in this case. We had someone in that chat though who was just posting really like just abhorrent shit all the time. Like it got really out of control. Everyone started a separate group text and be like, dude, what is going on with him? Like he means this for real. It was like, it was just not cool to hang out with him.
Yes.
And, you know, I never argued for him to be taken off of social media. I never said he should get deplatformed or canceled or whatever, but I didn't want to hang out with him.
You just don't want to hang out with them. They're like a bad vibe. They're weird. They're too deep in this rabbit hole.
It's just political posting all the time, dude. It's like, well, people are sharing pictures of their dog, you know? It's like, I want to know what my friend's dog had cancer. I want to know what happened to the dog. I don't want to hear about some like political argument on Twitter 12 times a day from these fucking people. Like that's someone that I don't want to hang out with.
Yeah. Well, here's an argument against that. It's like, I have one of my friends is a part of this group chat, and over COVID, they just got increasingly more racist. And it's like, this was a group chat with like a lot of different kinds of people. And some of them were, maybe more right wing. But like, as it just got more and more virulently racist, people just were left. Like there was like an Asian guy and there's like, I don't like this anymore. Like this is making me uncomfortable. I don't want to be a part of this group anymore. Those people now have zero friends. No friends. Though the most racist people, it's the two most racist people left in that group chat just being racist with each other.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
You know, and eventually they'll find something to disagree on, and they can be racist by themselves.
Yeah, you're actually you're Greek. It's over for you. So like, I don't know. I think this happens in many different directions, this purity test spiral. And it gets to the point where you are actually left alone and atomized, and it's bad. Very bad. No homies. The homielessness crisis is unparalleled. Yeah. Where the homies at?
I'm a bit older than you. Right? So we've got like a half generation between us.
Yes.
And I feel like the texture feels culturally similar to genre disputes between people who were really into music at the time, where they would sometimes have implicit political meanings, like punk was more anarchist and metal was apolitical or whatever, and the punks would make fun of the metalheads because they had no political analysis, and then the metalheads would make fun of the punks because they're totally ineffectual and disorganized and their music is like not as like macho or whatever. But like the idea that, I mean, my high school was small. Like the punks and the metalheads had to hang out together because there just weren't enough people to like fill a whole table.
Yeah.
And yeah, it feels like the teleology of this thing is that you just kind of end up alone with all of your perfectly niche consumer preferences, such that you're getting the like long tail Netflix, YouTube content that's perfectly tailored to you that no one else wants to see. All this
stuff is so downstream from atomization that by addressing atomization, you address all these political issues in a way that's much more generative than actually debating them on the substance of what they're saying. Like, just hang out with people. There was a guy who was canceled and who was in my studio as a person in my studio, real guy. Online, all these people hate him. Then they come to the studio and they meet him. And then they hear his side of the story because they just have to exist in the same physical space as this guy instead of on Twitter, where you can just sort of like cast people aside, unfollow them, block them, whatever. That's like, it's the physical space is not there. When there's the physical space, people realize, oh shit, this guy actually just got completely fucked by someone making shit up about him, and now his whole social circle had collapsed because of that, and he had a lot of trauma from it, and. When you actually like talk to him and you realize, oh, I was not considering this as a real human being with like his own experience, side, emotions, then people's perspectives changed. There was a guy at the studio that had participated, actually a couple now, who had participated in his canceling, that met him and apologized to him because after meeting him.
Wow.
Because they were like, oh, I didn't realize, I'm so sorry. I was Twitter brained and I'm realizing that was bad now. And yeah, so this is the kind of thing where like, people they have to engage with the reality, like the nuance of reality, in a way where I find that very fun to look at. Because it's like, No,
What were the
got offline.
effects of the cancellation? Was it social? Was it career?
Mostly social. His career's never been better, actually. But socially, he
Really?
lost all of his friends because his friends
Yeah.
weren't actually his friends. They were people on Twitter.
One has to ask how valuable your friends are to you, which is
One thing
tough.
he says a lot, which has really stuck with me, is you never want to find out who your real friends are.
Right.
Yeah, because it was so
Right.
traumatizing for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why you never apologize for anything. You always double down.
What if there's a larger process of social atomization that's happening, and this is happening across like every facet of society and culture, and politics is just the most expedient way to atomize everyone? Because if you like tennis and I like basketball, we can still both be sports fans,
Yeah.
but we're not directly in conflict with each other. If someone likes punk and the other person likes metal, they can both be music fans and have their distinct genres. But if you're, whatever, a right-wing populist and I'm a left-wing populist, our belief systems are totally irreconcilable and thus we can't share a space.
Yeah.
Is there some larger process of social atomization which is actually kind of the underlying story here that is just latching onto politics out of convenience?
Right. Well, if I was an evil man with a lot of power,
Right.
and I was trying to divide people as expediently as possible, then I probably would latch on to political differences as the best way to divide people, because there's really no easier or better way to divide people. Now, is it because it's an evil guy doing this, or is this because it's a natural process and this is just the way that ideas have moved? It's the evil man, and he's got a lot of money.
Is his name Mark Zuckerberg, or who's the evil man in this case?
It's a Berg of some kind. Mark Zuckerberg, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good one. Or Jeff Bezos. Or Elon Musk. Or Bill Clinton. I'm throwing in him in there. I don't know why. It just sounds right. Do you think it's a guy? You think it's like intentional? I think a lot of these things that seem intentional are actually just like a process. Which is
No, I think there was a political philosophy built into the design of social media. Libertarians built the internet. John Perry Barlow. Yeah, we are seeking freedom in cyberspace. We are trying to escape the industrial nations of the world.
This is a very appealing perspective to me because it means there's a shadowy cabal somewhere doing evil, and I do like those perspectives. So I'm down. I'm sold.
I mean, I think in the libertarian perspective, there's not necessarily a ruling cabal or elite. There's just a kind of open competitive place that that is the point of a platform, was to bypass the editors and the gatekeepers and the curators and the people who would withhold those opinion pieces from mainstream media. Now we're building a distribution platform where everyone can have a voice. And as we started talking about from the beginning, from the liberal perspective, the kind of centrist liberal perspective, everyone has a voice. Now we can work in from all sides and reach the truth together. It's great that everyone has a platform because then we can find real truth and consensus.
Right.
But actually the purpose was to inflame all of those differences and to break apart the coalition such that there was no consensus truth.
So all of
people
social
would break
media
apart.
is the equivalent of that Sovereign House libertarian guy putting people against each other to inflame their differences to advance his network state utopia?
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
The design of social media is the design of the political compass where you can score one box away from someone and those minute differences will prevent you from ever being in a political coalition. I really think that's a philosophical position that they made at the very beginning.
This is becoming one of the books you put on the bookshelf that break the shelf for me.
That was too much.
Oh my God. Actually, that makes a lot of sense.
You have predictions for 2024?
I think I'm going to hang out with my friends more.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing the same thing.
And I'm going to make more videos on YouTube.com about timely issues for views and money on YouTube.com. And I think Trump will win. And I think I will try carnivore again.
I've been doing the Geronda diet recently.
What's that?
It's similar to carnivore, but you also have leafy green vegetables.
Oh.
So you're eating like basically steak and eggs, but you
that
also
sounds
have like
good.
spinach and kale and
Ooh,
stuff.
okay. I could get behind that.
A little more like fiber, and you just don't feel as like insane when you're doing carnivore. But it's really good for like getting more lean.
Okay, here's my actual prediction. Trump will win. Trump, because Trump and Kamala are even in the polls right now, and the polls always underestimate Trump. So Trump wins.
Kamala's she's a little above,
head?
yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Just recently, yeah.
Whatever. This doesn't fit my narrative. This is just step one. I have to like make 3 more lateral connections before we get to anywhere interesting.
Right.
Trump wins. Then the Democrats scramble. They're like, centrism doesn't work. We have to move further to the left. Our only hope, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And she says, okay, I'll take up the mantle. Her vice president, Bernie Sanders. The far left emerges. Trump dies. Peter Thiel's mentee, J.D. Vance, is president. J.D. Vance gets Fuentes on. Fuentes-Vance ticket. AOC versus left-wing populism versus right-wing populism. They clash. Who wins? No one agrees on the election results. Boom. Actually, the libertarians win. Network states. Left-wing populists get Chicago. I don't know, fucking America. The right-wing populists get Minnesota. I'm just saying random American.
They can have Miami, actually.
Miami.
You don't want it.
Okay, yeah, they can take Miami. And then, I don't know. You see Civil War 2023? That was a good movie.
Yeah. I like Ex Machina by Alex Garland. Actually, that one was kind of fun.
How's that one go?
It's an old thought experiment from Les Wrong, actually. So the idea that was first posited by Eliezer Yudikowsky from Les Wrong was that let's imagine that you have a box.
That guy would be less neurotic about AI if he lifted weights.
Probably good advice for him. Yeah. Let's imagine you have a box. Within that box is a super intelligent AI.
Oh, I remember this conversation between Eliezer Lolowski and Lex Friedman. No one understood. Like Lex Friedman just didn't understand anything. But so I'll do the Lex Friedman here.
Well, so the question is about the human security system, right? So you're on this terminal that's not connected to the internet whatsoever. You go into the room. The AI is only on that computer. It's not connected to anything else. Through talking to an individual,
what does the box say about the soul, man? Sorry, that's the only Lex Friedman bit I'm going to do.
The question is whether the AI would be able to persuade the human to let it out of the box.
Right.
And in the film Ex Machina, it's a very attractive woman that seduces the man, and he decides to like let her out of. Basically, she's being held in a cell in the basement of this house. But through persuasion and conversation, is that actually a security vulnerability? More than an Ethernet cable, for example.
Yeah, there's a...
like if the AI says like, if you let me out of this box, I will give you the cure for cancer. I've figured it out. You know, I have the solution for fully automated luxury communism that I've cracked with my super intelligent AI, whatever. I will only give it to you if you let me out of the box and you can do great for humanity.
Right.
And could the person then be persuaded?
You know what I would do? Sledgehammer. Bam! I'm a robophobe.
That's probably, well, you never know if the AI is telling the truth.
Yeah, well, that's why you can't trust AI. You can't trust robots. And the moment we try to give robots rights, brick, smash. I'm just categorically, I'm racist against robots. And I think my grandchildren will look back on this moment and be like, how could my grandfather be so bigoted? Just kidding. I'm not going to have kids. I can't afford them. But if in the hypothetical where I can afford to have children, they're going to be like, he really was racist against 6 armed people, and they're going to be stacking in the Amazon microstate with their 6 arms. Why was he racist against this?
Some of the AI people do talk about this. They call it having distinctions between human and artificial intelligence is like a vestigial form of racism.
Yeah, well, I'm racist then.
Speciesism.
Yeah, I'm speciesist then.
You're a speciesist.
I fucking hate like the idea that I'm never going to concede that a robot has consciousness, and if it does have consciousness, I'm going to do everything in my power to make it suffer.
You're sounding a lot like a human supremacist
I am
now.
Absolutely a human supremacist. I love human beings, and I love our flaws, and we have this desire to like get rid of all of our flaws and just like close that gap between action and thought, or the things that make us feel pain. And that is what you are. You are those contradictions, and you are what feels pain. You should suffer. And I'm going to kill the robots, basically. Black box. So there's this black box with an AI in it. That's it. End of thought experiment.
Do you feel like the ANPRIMs are not as influential as they were a few years ago?
I think the ANPRIMs need to do more of that mail stuff. They need to do the post office stuff. Amazon post office. The Amazon post office, when they nationalize the government nationalizes Amazon, they should turn a blind eye to any mail that the narco-primitivists send. That's my It's my hot take.
I kind of think it's going to work the other way around,
Yeah,
where like
probably.
Amazon is going to take over the government, be like, look, we provide all of these services, like just let us do it more efficiently and better. That seems more plausible to me.
Yeah, I think it is more plausible actually. All the more reasons for the mayo.
But the Anprims were pretty influential a few years ago, right? There was like Pine Tree Gang, there were like memes of Ted Kaye and all of this stuff. And that kind of seems like, I don't know, it just like waned in popularity.
Something I've
on
noticed
both the
about a
left
lot of
and right,
these
it
tech
seems.
bro guys is they like Ted Kaczynski and they like primitivism, but
Right,
then they're
right.
also doing the accelerationist stuff. So yeah, I think it's just like you go in one direction, you want a philosophical like thing that goes against it, but it's also kind of tiring to advocate for something that.
Yeah, like literally, one of the guys who is now, what do they call it? He's EAC, right? He's
Yeah.
like pilled by the Techno-Optimist Manifesto for Mark Andreessen. He was literally a Ted Kaye poster in 2018. You know, so within a few years, he kind of like went around the whole spectrum, and now he's like really into technology. He thinks AI is going to save us,
Yeah.
and like before, he was posting like always on your damn phone, and it's Ted by the cabin and whatever.
Reminds me of like someone like Nick Land starting off as a communist, and then you are tired of being on the losing side, so you just end up advocating for capitalism.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, you're like, I'm tired of losing. I
Yeah.
want to get tired of winning, and so you just advocate. JJ's like this. He, you live in a horrible dystopia life, and so
Yeah,
you just
yeah.
say, well, the dystopia is good actually. He's currently soy facing at me.
He literally is, actually. That's pretty funny. Did you ever see somebody who can explain what the hell Nick Land is talking about?
Our studio is called the CCCRU, and our
Yeah.
anarcho-capitalist is a dark enlightenment sort of, anarcho-monarch kind of deal.
Right.
And she tried reading some Nick Land. She was like, I don't know what he's saying here.
Yeah. yeah.
So, we adopted that purely aesthetically. I'm an accelerationist because it sounds cool. But I also, I guess, like the idea of speeding up certain trends that are happening already. But why do I like that? I like that because there is no alternative to speeding up the trends, it seems. And if you want to feel like you have some agency over something that's completely out of your control, you say, well, I wanted things to go in this direction anyway.
Right,
And it's a cope.
right.
It's a big cope.
It's cope. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say that it feels like culture is moving really, really fast, right? Like your news feed, there's this like constant competitive edge for the attention economy and whatever else. Like there's always like new stunts from Extinction Rebellion where they're destroying another invaluable artwork this week or whatever. But I feel like technologically, in some cases, we've actually gone backwards, right? Like we had faster jets, international travel in the 1970s. Like a lot of the infrastructure that we're using, particularly in the United States, is like, it's the same bridges that were all built during the same period. Now they're just collapsing. Like in some cases, things are getting worse. And Mark Fisher has a great quote about this, that like the 21st century is 20th century culture on high definition screens, which that kind of feels like we're in just infinite reboots of like Star Wars and Marvel movies and whatever. And we have this kind of like technological stagnation, economic stagnation, and then a cultural stagnation in our like brands and trends, but it's happening like even more quickly. Like we're getting more episodes of the same old shit all the time.
Right. Well, the more things change, the more things stay the same.
Oh, God.
And that's my way of dismissing any possible thought on this subject. I don't know. I think things change. But I'm not too familiar with the past, truthfully.
Yeah,
I'm more interested in the future. So it's possible, JJ checks me on this all the time, that if I knew more about the past, I would realize that things actually haven't been changing as much as young people think that things are changing. And I say, shut up, old man. Vroom, vroom, zoom, zoom. Let's go faster. Change.
I think that's part of why we get along, because neither of us are really like historians or politics people, but we're just kind of like creative types.
Yeah.
And so those things are really interesting because they're really influential right now. But the idea of like being an academic, like I looked into those things, I thought like, do I actually want to pursue this path? Like I've taught in universities, I've taught in MFA programs, which is like very different than like scholarly research papers and whatever. But, I am really at my core, like just a kind of creative guy who gets interested in stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily want to be a PhD historian.
Yeah. No, me neither. I don't have enough dopamine for it. I think we're fundamentally artists who are dropped into political scenarios and are just living within that. And that's why we have kind of weird outsider perspectives on a lot of this stuff.
Should we just get really into like meditation or spirituality or some shit like that? Like,
if I did, it would just be another arc on my YouTube channel. It's too
Right.
late for me. It's too late. It's
too late.
It's become inseparable from who I am,
Yeah.
and there's no escape anymore.
I did have a brief fantasy of maybe I should just totally pivot to fitness. I just pivot to fitness and nutrition.
That would be cool.
Yeah, we're going to work out after this also,
We are.
which I'm very excited for.
I'm very excited for
That'll be
it.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do really think about that though. I do think that like, okay, if you're just making content forever, and politics is interesting to a certain degree, but I kind of feel like, I'll just speak for myself here and you can say whether you agree. I feel like I got interested in politics or internet politics and meme culture and whatever else because it was filling this void that used to be filled by something else. And so all of that young creative energy that was like experimental,
Special
like
little
weird
guy called
creative stuff.
Jesus Christ.
It feels meant for some people it's spirituality, for some people it's religion or whatever, but
Community.
there was this other
Something
thing that
beyond
was
yourself.
happening. Yeah.
Yes.
And so the way that people were deploying politics was really fun and interesting and exciting and it felt new and whatever. But like the people who were into that stuff before, I feel like if politics had not erupted over into the memosphere, I'm really interested in internet culture. And I'm interested in how the particular configuration of internet culture steered politics more so than I am interested in like, I mean, I say this at the same time, but I literally read like Ludwig von Mises and Economic Calculation in the Socialist Commonwealth and like obscure shit from the 1920s about the origins of neoliberalism. Like I'm invested in the calculation debate. I'm invested in the history of the 20th century from like the intellectual perspective. But I feel like it's because those things just like found their way into weird creative culture. And that's what like really, really drew me. So I do think like, yeah, maybe just, my Substack turns into like, well, it's upper lower splits and then we're doing push pull legs and you want to get 50 grams of fat per day when you're cutting and that kind of stuff. I could kind of see that for myself actually.
I hope
I'd probably
that.
make more money too, actually.
I hope that for you.
Yeah.
And I hope that for all of us. And at the same time, I just feel this power, this force only getting stronger and its grip on our souls only tightening. And I feel that on a broad scale for all of humanity as we race unstoppably towards the post-human techno-capital singularity at the end of time, where Neo-China emerges from, ?
Sure.
So yeah, there's a world where I just make fun little pop songs about love or something.
Yeah.
And I hope I can escape this pull, but I don't think I could, even if I tried.
Well, you like doing the Horseshoe Theory podcast.
Yeah, it's fun.
You enjoy that.
I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah. And you get to do a little bit more in that context too.
Yeah, I talk to artists and stuff as well.
Yeah.
It's not all political. And in fact, my channel is not all political either. I can just kind of talk about whatever I want.
Yeah.
Some of my most popular videos are just talking about like fetishes. So
That's true. Yeah. Quantitatively, anything that has like sex involved in it is going to do really, really well
Yeah.
in the numbers. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
But, people are like, where do you get your ideas from? And I'm like, I got a guy tied up in my basement and I rip his tape off. And he's like, fetishes, put the fetishes on the political compass. I'm like, all right, 1 million views. Okay. And I put the tape back on, slap him around a bit.
Feed him every now and then.
Just give him some water.
Yeah.
He can go a long time. He was pretty fat when I got him.
Okay.
He's been living off his fat reserves. He's actually cured a lot of his mental illnesses.
From fasting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tremendous restorative properties, actually. It's
true.
Yeah.
I'm fasted all the time.
You also, though, you make a lot of decisions that are not just for the views. I think
true.
that's why I'm so interested in your stuff is because you do make a lot of weird decisions that are like really niche, or it's like, I can just see Greg in this decision, in this particular concept. And you seem to have a good balance with your work where some things, explode, go viral, get tons of views. And then there's also just like, oh, he like really cares about this topic or it's really funny to him.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm probably not a very good businessman. A lot of people in my field make a lot more money than me. And I just feel the need to make art. So I make art, sometimes to my detriment.
Do you believe in legitimacy?
Do I believe in legitimacy? I don't know. I mean, I believe in swag. I don't have AI slop farm artists coming by who just crank out 20 videos a day with robots that I don't respect.
Well, I mean, there's people that do what I do and they make a lot more money, right? But I don't think that they don't get invited to speak at museums, for example. They don't get invited to like what they say doesn't carry the same weight, right? Like there's something that the source of legitimacy is sometimes actually defying the incentives and the laws of the market.
Right.
Where you choose, like the easy answer would be to say yes for this example. You'd get more views and more clicks and whatever, but you choose on principle to say no, and that generates trust over time. Your audience will trust you. It means the things that you're saying are supported, they're legitimate. Those things matter,
We're
right?
morally legitimizing our poverty. I got it.
Is this just an elaborate cope?
It's all a cope. I need to turn this legitimacy into cash ASAP. I'm getting audited.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm so legitimate and have so much swag that it somehow horseshoes around and gets me $1 billion of Teal techno capital. A little drop of the fake Teal bucks for Greggy.
We'll put in
drop of the blood.
we'll put in a drop of the techno capital.
A drop
over
of
here
blood
in
money
post.
for Greggy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Teal.
I feel like it's increasingly difficult to maintain that legitimacy, you know? And a lot of that characterizes the period that we exist in, both for our political narratives and also our culture wars and everything else. Just the tremendous incentives of these platforms are kind of like impossible to steer out of in most cases.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, not a lot of people escape being like a lot of TikTok people, they blow up for one thing and they never learn how to do anything else.
Yeah.
And then people get tired of that one thing and they forget them. So I've been on the internet for 5 years, and I think my longevity is probably due to my flexibility in terms of not sticking to one thing. But who knows? Maybe I would have also lasted a lot longer and made a lot more money if I just did bang the politics drum over and over again. I just wouldn't be able to. I can't focus on something for that long.
Well, you go through different arcs, right?
Yep.
That's part of it.
I'm supposed to be on my make as much money as possible arc right now, but it's not working.
Oh yeah, that's a good arc to be on.
Yeah.
I should get on that arc. Yeah. Do you know what you're going to do next?
I never know what I'm going to do next. Second to second, minute to minute. Actually, here's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to work out with Joshua Citarella, and we're going to do chest.
That is what we're going to do.
And we're going to do chest.
Greg, I have to say, I have such incredible admiration for your work. You are one of my favorite artists. It's a pleasure to hang out with you, talk with you, see you this week, to see your work flourish, everything you've done in the last few years. So,
Josh, you and me, we're going to make you a billionaire on YouTube.com.
oh yeah?
You're going to get on YouTube. I'm going to shout this podcast out. You're going to make video essays explaining to the youth from your wizened position.
I've been doing all this mewing and I haven't been able to show it to anybody. People are just hearing it on the podcast.
We're gonna get your gonial angle on display.
Okay.
And you and I, we're gonna rocket to the top. We're gonna sell political compass merch, nonsense political compass merch.
We did have a few good ideas.
We're gonna make so much money they sue us, and then they're gonna be like, "Wait, I don't believe in IP. What's going on?"
That's true.
Yeah, that's probably
That's
why they
the
haven't
back
sued
door.
anyone.
Yeah.
We're gonna be living large, and we're gonna do a bunch of cool shit because I respect you a lot. And if at any point you want me to live in your floorboards and just do whatever you tell me to do, I am desperate to subjugate myself into a cause greater than myself. And I'll do it. I'll do it for you, Joshua Citarella.
The feeling is entirely mutual. I'm the biggest fan of your work. I watch everything you do, and I enjoy it so much. And you're just such an extraordinary, insightful, incredible person. So it's been an honor to talk with you. I'm so glad we got to do this. And whenever you want, you come visit me in New York, and you don't even have to stay in the floorboards. You can just crash on the couch. That would be great.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I'm moving up in the world.
Yeah. Greg, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. And thanks to the cast and crew of this production as well.